Muy buenas compañeros, continuamos con las entrevistas, el espacio que tenemos reservado para nuestros protagonistas en este festival que estamos celebrando en Guía di Sora de MiradasDoc. Hoy tenemos a Scarpelli con su película Abessa. Nos va a contar un poquito de qué trata y nos va a contar un poco también de qué ha sentido al hacerla. Mo, nice to meet you. A pleasure to have you here. First of all, this is your first solo movie as a director. Can you tell us if it is really different from the other one that you did as a co-director?
Yes, this one is very different. Well, I also shoot films and the DOP as well. And the first one was co-direction and co-edit and co-produce and co-shoot everything. This time around, I took a lot more time getting to know the people in the film, to the point of spending a couple years with them. Not the whole time with them, but spending time and leaving, thinking, writing, coming back. And I really liked this kind of way of doing it because it allows more time to get to know somebody, but also it inspires ideas. And in this case, the kid in my film, his name is Asalif. Asalif is 10 years old and he kind of does the same thing every day. If I were to just come and make a purely observational documentary of a kid just doing the same thing, I would probably have to live there for a long time before there was something that provoked something interesting enough for a full feature-length film. If I was making that kind of film that kind of hinges on activities. Yeah. Instead, I wanted to make something more existential. He's a very brilliant kid with a big imagination, and he comes from a culture that has a big imagination around storytelling and folklore. So the film really needed to reflect his way of seeing the world. And so the narrative in the story is one, Abessa means lion, and it's one in which, with a lot of time and a lot of just listening and trying to understand who he was and what stories were important to him, we came up with a kind of narrative where it's kind of his own fantasy, his own dream, that if he transforms into a lion, he can fight back against all the things in the world.
You just mentioned him, Asalif, and a 10-year-old kid who had to move from his original place where he was living with his mother because of a big construction that big society is doing, right? Mm-hmm. When you were there, when you arrived, when you were treating with them, did you feel that was unfair? The situation was unfair with them when they had to move out of their homes?
Yeah, I think it's a theme. I came to this space in the first place because I'm seeing this theme everywhere in the world, all of us are, mm-hmm. where land is getting used by new projects that say modernization and say better life and all these things. And so the people who lived on it before have to leave. And sometimes they're paid and sometimes they're not paid. In this case, it was kind of confusing. Some people were paid, some people were not, some people lived with others and one got paid and the other didn't. But it caused a lot of chaos for this place specifically because land doesn't just mean places that you build your house. A land for the people who were on this place that is now a big condominium, that was their only money. It was how they ate. It was what they give to their children. It was the place that they had cultivated culture, really. So when you take that away and you say, well, just find another house, it's not so easy for people. And so yes, I think it's quite unfair in terms of gentrification and these kinds of things. They usually end up being quite unfair for someone like Asalif, who doesn't have a say in it, especially as a kid. But also the world itself, not just Ethiopia, is figuring out how to do this type of thing because cities are expanding and it's happening everywhere.
What's their situation right now? I mean, you just mentioned that mm-hmm. some of them get paid when they have to move out. Some of them get a new house, a new place to live. Mm-hmm. What about them? Him and his mother, obviously.
Yeah, so Asalif and his mom were actually, the place in the movie that they're living is a little tool shed. And they're squatting. Someone else got removed. They were removed from their land and they didn't get paid. Someone else got removed from land and got a little plot of land. and they wanted to wait because they think that the condo is going to get bigger, which is probably going to happen, and then they could sell the land for more. So someone owns that land, they just made a little tool shed, and they said, oh, you can stay here because we feel bad for you. So it's kind of like a pity house, which is, they make it into their own, which is great, but it's not a great situation for them because they're always worried, oh my gosh, there's always land brokers in the film. I have a part of this, but it happened all the time, that people coming around saying how much is the land. So the mother is always worried that she's going to have to move again. Okay. So when we made the film, towards the end of production, we ended up pooling some money together, myself, my family, and just a small amount of money, and getting a new renting. We didn't want to totally make them move to a whole different part of the city because it's very difficult to raise a kid alone anyway, like his mom's doing. So they said, let's just move to a little place close to here. And we found them a little place where they're renting it now. So now at least they won't get displaced. And Asalif goes to school nearby there, and so that's what they're growing up. And actually, I talked to them today, this afternoon, okay. And they're doing well. Asalif is getting older; he's like taller than his mother and everything.
Nice.
But they're getting by.
Obviously, that's a big part of the movie, but there's also a big part of it. I would say that, and it's about imagination. We can say it about it because this kid. He dreams, he creates his own fantasy where he is a lion, mm-hmm. Let's say the animal that he fears the most, we mm-hmm. can say, Abessa. And he does it in order to stay away from the cruel reality, we can say that, right?
Yes.
Can you explain how that imagination is so important in his life?
Yeah, Asalif's struggle really spoke to me because there's plenty of things in the world, and actually in Ethiopia at this time too, there was a lot of political violence or chaos and some violence that resulted. So a lot of our struggles that we think are making our lives hard or that we see in movies are ones that are like bombs going off or something very direct, something external. But the reality is that being a kid growing up in a world where you don't know your place, where you don't fit in with the kids who moved into this big new condo, and you don't fit in with the country farm kids who had been displaced by it but still have some sort of land or family. You're trying to find your place anyway, and life is just very hard. And so to me, some of the things that can really crush us are I call it slow violence or cold violence. And the condo is kind of a representative of that. We say, you have to get a job, you have to go do this, you have to be this kind of person, and you're like, that doesn't fit with me, but it's supposed to, and it starts to kind of crush people. And I see this in people in my life, and I think all of us have experienced that, these structures that don't have a face, it's not a gun pointing at you, it's not that, dramatic, but it's crushing you, it's making you hurt. And people in Asalif's mom's situation really, really are crushed by this kind of thing because they don't have a lot of means. So Asalif feels all the pressures of this. And in the midst of being with him and his family, I found that despite, their circumstances being hard, and circumstances for a lot of people in this situation anywhere in the world being hard, that he's a really hopeful kid because he does something that I guess I get to do by making films, but hopefully all of us have a way to do in our own lives, which is create a new world. It's not crazy. Yeah. You're not a crazy person for saying, you know what, I'm going to decide that I want things to be a little more fun. I'm going to make this into a game. I'm going to wash the dishes, but it's a game instead of washing the dishes, which is really annoying. And so Asalif really taught me how to harness enchantment and fantasy. And I found that in the film, one of his antagonists are these hyenas that lurk in the forest above him in the condo. Mm-hmm. And he keeps going up there to test his bravery with them. And I found that when I really lend myself to his worldview, all the adults are saying there's no hyenas up there, who cares, it's a thin forest, nobody's there because the condos are here, they move them, what's that kid doing, But when I really start to get into his world, I became terrified of these hyenas, and I realized you can create this kind of feeling about anything in life, to make it more interesting, more fun, and use stories in that way too. He taught me a lot about that.
To conclude, would you like to make the viewer, the spectator, feel some empathy about those lives, or feel something about it? Do you expect that, and do you want it from us?
I would hope so. That's what film is, really. It's allowing you to feel what you will when you watch it. But it was amazing because we had the premiere in a section that was geared towards children. And the film is actually it deals with a lot of adult tensions, because Asalif's like an old soul, I think. So what I found at the premiere of the film was that the reactions for children and adults was very profoundly emotional. It was coming from a place of lived experience. Every time they'd ask a question, they'd talk about adults and kids, their own lives and their own selves. So that part made me very, I try to just transpose as much as I can to a film what I felt while making it, what I feel is true, what I'm actually kind of obsessed with or something. And all those things show in this film, I think if you just stay true to that, the audience feels exactly what you do. And the truth is, I have a lot of respect for this kid, more than many adults in my life, more than anyone I probably ever will meet. So if you feel that in the film, then it means that I did my job, I guess.
Hopefully that you get that purpose from your job, and we're looking forward to seeing it. So thank you very much for coming here, and we'll see you around. Okay? Thank you.